for listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, John Cross.
Hello, and welcome to this, the first After Movie Diner episode of 2021. Here we are, living in the future, and everything is very much the same as it has been.
Temporarily, we hope.
Because what did people expect? Not temporarily. It's going to be forever that things are awful. Just embrace it. Embrace the awfulness and just accept it. That's what I've chosen to do, and that's why I will survive.
Is that what acceptance sounds like? Like being really pessimistic about everything?
Well, not being really pessimistic. I'm just saying, like, everyone is, everyone loves a deadline, right? Everyone's sort of like, New Year 2021, it's going to be so much better than 2020. Say goodbye to the old, in with the new, right? Or they're like, when Biden takes office, everything's going to change because, like, no more Trump and we're going to have Biden and out with the old, in with the new. Everyone gets super excited, and I'm like, we clearly have learned nothing from the fact that we've been having New Year's for decades, as far as I'm aware, and everything is still awful. People are still greedy. Politicians are still self-serving assholes. So, there's still a pandemic running around. In fact, the pandemic is worse now than it was when we all locked down to begin with. 20% infection rate in California as we speak, rising. We also haven't bought enough of the vaccine. And Biden is saying that at the rate that we're giving it out, it's meant to be 20 million by the end of the year. It's going to barely be 2 million by the end of the year, and that's only the first round of the vaccine. He said at this rate, it's going to go on for years.
I'd just like to say,
yes,
I'm very grateful to have been invited on Newsnight, and I don't know why you've asked me, because normally I talk rubbish about movies. I speculate wildly about people I don't know and their motives that I couldn't possibly fathom in making said terrible movies. But now I'm on. I will say that I feel that the evolution of modern politics dictates some sort of change in the status quo. Even if all that is that I'm pretty sure that one of them is dead, right?
What's that?
Is status quo. I think it's the guitarist.
Oh, okay.
I think he's dead. So I feel
you went from sarcasm to surrealism.
The world will be different from now on.
Okay.
It won't be as full.
So I take your point.
That's my feeling about the future.
I take your point, and your weird 80s dad rock segue, which I did appreciate massively. That was a sheer pleasure. My only point really was that you said I was being pessimistic, and I was simply pointing out that I feel like I'm being realistic, because I don't feel negative. I don't feel overly positive, but I don't feel negative. I just feel like, let us at least accept the scenarios and surroundings in which we find ourselves, instead of doing what we've done for the last 8 to 9 months, which is hope on magic pixies who are not going to show up. So I'm just saying that I would rather.
Saying you like it. Here we go, rocking all over the world.
Yes. So anyway, hilarious jokes notwithstanding, I think you know where I'm coming from. Anyway, it's too exciting. It's the second. It's the first episode of 2021. It's the second episode of outrageously bad.
You're like your strategy, your podcast strategy is all over the place. You got the first episode of 2021 is the second episode of a season. It's the third season of the year, right? Because we did Sleazy Spade of Springtime and Pleasance and now Idle. Yes. Right? Are those the only seasons you've done this year?
No, we did
unofficial detective season.
We did an unofficial detective season. But by the by, as people can tell, I spoke the truth when I said things won't change very much, because again, you've interrupted my introduction, which is something that you are now. I mean, we should just patent
I'm a legend
it.
For
we
me.
should just patent it.
I don't want to let down the fans.
Yeah, the fans
expect a certain structure. Do you know what I mean?
Don't let.
They want a well-argued and concise political opening that I derail with status quo jokes like that. That's what they've come to expect every week since we started.
We had moved past my ramblings about that. We had moved into the actual introduction of the movie-based
did that happen?
podcast, yes.
Did I just blow through that?
And you interrupted that because you felt that the world needed more of you being
I'm just pointing out that
sarcastic.
I think it's. I just feel
knocking me for pointing out the reality in which we all live, not in an effort to be pessimistic, but in an effort to just say to people, "Hey, embrace it," because when you embrace the now, hang on a second.
You are Kurtz.
Every psychologist worth their salt will tell you that living in the moment is imperative. And all I'm saying is live within the moment that you find yourself. And we find ourselves... Hang on a second.
I'm not sure that's the message to give people who are listening to this podcast.
Hang on a second.
Because if they want to live in the moment, they just turn us off.
I think this hilarious back and forth on this subject has gone on long enough, and I've really been trying
You're putting your foot down.
I've been trying to introduce...
2021, do you want to get yourself like some kind of a gavel, right? Or like a squeaky gavel that you can bang, and when you bang the squeaky gavel, it's like... I've had enough. The interruptions are over. I'd like to get back on track.
Well, yes. I'm just going to plow on with the introduction. Hello, everybody. It's the After Movie Diner. As always, our co-host Jim is fantastic, and we love his silly, ugly bum face. And we are going to be moving on to our second episode of our outrageously bad Eric Idle film season.
Is that what it's officially called?
That's what it's officially called.
Say it on Facebook. So it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season.
Yes, and that's what the theme tune is. If you had listened to the last episode,
I have not.
If you, there's a whole theme tune. There's a whole theme tune.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'll listen to it now.
And it's coming up right now.
Normally, I don't. I used to listen, but now I don't because I've realised that I have literally heard it all before.
Excellent. Well, look, at a certain point, one starts to just preach to the crowd, and we have a crowd. It's small but loyal.
And it's sort of a crowd of sheds, which when you put them together, looks much bigger than it is because only one person per shed.
One person per shed, but some sheds can be quite.
Square footage wise, we're doing great.
Yes,
actual ears,
less ears, more footage.
But. That could be the slogan of the podcast.
But saying that, second episode of the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. Here is the theme song. Well, it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. Yeah, it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season, and in typical Idle fashion, I thought I'd start it with a song. Nobody asked me to, but I need to make more references to penises and dongs. And some thinly veiled innuendos about tits that some might think passes for wit and ingratiates me with the LA set, who are quick to embrace me and quick to forget that I've made some truly outrageously bad films for some reason. Well, here's the After Movie Diner back to remind you with the outrageously bad Eric Idle film during the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. And this song has gone on far too long without mentioning my dong. Oh, something like that. Anyway, boobs. And yes, wonderful. And we are going to be talking all about something that happened on Twitter this very evening.
Oh, yes, I'm dying to hear
regarding Eric Idle.
Can I just say, I would just, on the record, I would like to admire your balls.
Yes.
Because to chase down Idle for an interview on what you are plastering all over social media as the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season, it takes chutzpah, I believe is the expression.
Well, outside of the movie that we're covering tonight, which obviously he wrote, produced, and starred in, and therefore has a invested interest in, and therefore probably much closer to his heart. Outside of that, every other movie we are covering, he has gone on record as saying was a bad movie, right? And he has said in interviews that, you know, the films he's been in and the sitcoms he's done and so on and so forth were not very good. So he said that himself. Also, the joke is on me because I was the one that post Python fandom went and tracked down all these films. So
saying Eric Idle owes you one.
No, I'm just saying that within the realm of the British cheeky chappy sense of humor, he should understand that the Eric Idle outrageously bad film season is meant both with cheeky, you know, tongue-in-cheek and with love, but at the same time an acknowledgement that these films are, you know, outrageously bad.
Is it meant with love, or is it meant with contempt?
Well, there's love there.
For the movies, not for him. For the movies.
Oh, the movies.
For his choices.
The movies are contemptible, but
for his treatment of Neil Innes.
For him and for his treatment of Neil Innes, outrageously bad. But. And we'll get it. In fact, this is a good point to at this point to pull out the message that John, your brother, John Wallace, left us on the last Idol, because I think it speaks to kind of the duality of idols that we are dealing with. So his message on the last Burn Hollywood Burn episode from earlier in December, he said, "I do love the way you turn on Idol during the podcast. At first painting him sympathetically as a lonely expat drifter, and then branding him a randy, plagiarizing Python whore. However, Idol might react to this season, and I think he would be very, very surprised to learn of its existence. I hope and I pray that Idol 3000, a dystopian Christmas carol, is made in the very near future. I'm eating up this series both. Infinitely more entertaining than the films themselves. I remember splitting hairs making me actually physically nauseous when watching it." But John talks of a good point. The duality of Idol. There is a part of me that will forever love Eric Idle for his Python work, for the Ruttles, for Rutland Weekend Television. And also, when you watch him, like if you watch YouTube interviews, like I watch YouTube, and I watch a lot of YouTube interviews, the Pythons kind of break, like John Cleese like tries to be caustic and shocking and just generally like a miserable old curmudgeon, and you know Gilliam's an absolute mad ball of hair who should probably not do any interviews. Palin sadly is just boring. Like when you see Palin interviewed, you're like like get in a balloon, Palin. Yeah. Go off to Azerbaijan.
Stand in front of a volcano, Palin, with a linen shirt, and then maybe we'll listen to what you have to say.
But no, I mean, I love Palin. I do love Palin deep down, but he's very boring in interviews. Idol is the only one that when I watch him in interviews, I'm like, I'd probably quite like, you know, hanging out with Idol. So
I have to say, to be fair, speaking to the duality of Idol, I feel like I mean, we'll get to it with this movie, but I feel like in his favour is clearly Burn Hollywood Burn's awfulness has got nothing to do with him.
Nothing to do with him, no.
And although Splitting Heirs is not by any measure a good movie, it is at least made with the intention to try and make you laugh it's good natured. It's not good,
no,
but it is good natured. And if if that's his idea of a movie, then I don't think he can be all bad.
No, he's not bad. And I do not want anyone to think that, either jokingly or otherwise, that I would ever suggest that Eric Idle is a bad person.
No, I don't think so either, except presumably of how he treated Neil Innes.
Right. And I think that was played out both publicly and privately between him and Neil. And as this is the day, and this is kind of sad, but we are recording this on the anniversary of Neil Innes's passing, so I don't know if that's fitting or not. I think he would.
Feels like it's a line we should just not. It's not about crossing or anything. It's just like, let's just pretend the line's not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I mean, listen.
Let's not even talk about the line.
If we're in some sort of weird, let's say Neil Innes survived, and we're in some weird post-apocalyptic future where they're lining up, over the hill surreal comedians from the 1960s, and we have to pick between them. I would probably pick Neil over Eric, but it would be with
a heavy heart.
It would be with a heavy heart, and I only mean that because I feel like
what you're saying is, if Eric is listening, he should know that in the future, where all washed-up comedians are put up against a wall, you would shoot him. But you would do so with a sense of regret.
Well, I would do so to save Neil Innes.
That could be said.
I would do so.
I would kill you, but I wouldn't feel great about it.
I would do it to save Neil Innes. That's all I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, fine, got it.
But beyond that, I would have to say, it is definitely with love. I could not enter this series if I did not have love.
That's true, and he's not. I didn't think. Like, again, splitting Heirs, for all of its faults, it's not cynical. No. It's not mean. It's not cruel. It's
just not original in any way.
No, but I'm saying that what could be said about it is it's clueless.
Yeah.
And because I like to speculate, my speculation is it's clueless out of insecurity rather than a lack of talent. It seems to me.
And again. Because we were going back to the story about Eric Idle and Twitter, but before we get,
that was much more interesting than anything I have to say ever.
No, it's not that. I just don't want to go into a dissection of the movie or your wild hypothesis until we've got past the stuff that we've got to get past. So I'm trying to.
Right. But I'm with you. Back on track.
I'm with
bang
you.
the gavel. Bang the squeaky gavel.
I love it. I will have to get like a comically oversized squeaky hammer.
Yeah. I can't be contained.
Jim's a wild man. I think
can't be contained, or
if someone is listening, who has not yet rated and reviewed the podcast on whatever podcast platform they listen to, please go on that podcast platform and rate and review with. John's fine, but his co-host Jim is a wild man who cannot be contained. I want that review to live in infamy on our podcast. Please go on to iTunes. I'm honestly telling whoever's listening who has not yet rated and reviewed the podcast on iTunes, where we have some wonderful reviews. We also have one that was like, get to the point, and we're like, no, the point of the show is we don't get to the point. But
the point is that there is no point.
Just like life, mate. Oh, so deep, so achingly deep. But please, someone write a review that starts with John's okay, but Jim, his co-host, is a wild man who cannot be contained.
It's true. It is true.
Anyway, I would love that. So Eric Idle, it's Neil Innes' passing. There's a connection there. We're not going to go on about it too much. So today, I was doing my usual thing. So John also sent me some messages on Facebook, and I think this will get into it. He was saying, loving the Eric Idle series. It was making me chuckle while shopping at the height of the COVID panic. There is something deeply satisfying about the thought of you plowing through Idle interviews to try and understand Splitting Heirs. This is what you should be paid to do. There should be a cross foundation devoted to supporting your deep dives into obscure movie mediocrity. if I'd have been Moranis when I had seen the poster, and in the poster, Idle is cradling a baby Moranis.
Oh, I remember that.
Wearing a large crown. He said, if I had been Moranis and seen that poster, I would be absolutely fucking furious with Idle. Not just for the baby Moranis, but the fact Idle is pulling that hello sailor face and instantly rendering the whole project a carry-on veneer. Anyway, the reason why I mentioned that comment is because I do indeed and have been enjoying doing deep dives into Idle interviews, Idle reviews, all sorts of things that I can find about the various movies. And Burn Hollywood Burn, I found a bunch of stuff. And
it's very interesting, mate. You provide the colour and the facts to the podcast, which nicely complement my irrelevant postulating and pointless wittering.
Your wild hypothesis. But I feel like
if
I bring...
just you, it'd be like, well, these are just like some slightly boring facts about Eric Idle. But put it together with like borderline, like irritating speculation, that it serves as a soothing balm. Do you know what I mean? I remind people of how unknowable and irritating the world is, and you are there to say no, there are things that we know.
Yes,
there are facts that we can enjoy and bathe in, like the cool water of a river. I
mean, I don't know how factual an interview is. Often interviews have to be kind of sieved through
but at least the person being interviewed has a better idea of what they were doing than some git. Do you know what I mean?
To be honest, dude, when you
in a bed set, speculating wildly.
When you get to
I reckon.
When you get to multi-chinned shambolic middle age like we have, I feel like the reality that we all absorb as we get older is that we're all just a bunch of gits. Like, that's the reality of it. And whether it's Eric Idle talking about Splitting Heirs, and because he made it, wrote it, and produced it, we assume he has more, knowledge and more context for his git-like ramblings.
You're right, I suppose.
I feel like
his level of self-knowledge as Eric Idle is probably pretty low.
I feel like you, as a rambling baldy goit in a bedsit in New York, I feel like you have just as much justification for your nonsense as he does, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that, mate. Anyway, this is I'm trying. It's a circuitous rap, but I'm trying.
It's one of your skills. It's patience and what's the word? Single-mindedness.
Again, go write a review. Jim is a wild man and cannot be contained. I can't wait to see that in print. Please,
John lacks the talent as a host to keep his co-host on point.
To wrangle wild man Jim from his bizarre hypothesis. So in doing that, in looking up Splitting Heirs interviews, I came across an interview by he's on Twitter as that Eton Jones fellow, which sounds very British and public school, if I may say that. And he said on Twitter, he did an interview. And I read the interview, and it's a fairly short interview, but it's a decent interview, and it's one of those where you're like, Idle has spoken about Splitting Heirs recently, and there's some interesting things there. There's also a lot about Catherine Zeta-Jones being nude, both from him and the director, which is sort of mildly unpleasant at this point. But on Twitter, the Eton Jones fellow, who clearly liked Splitting Heirs way more than any other human being has ever liked Splitting Heirs, said, Mr. Idle graciously gave me an interview when I was writing a piece on Splitting Heirs. It's a criminally overlooked comedy which always makes me hoot. And he apparently did a series on his website called The Dream Cage, which you can find over on thedreamcage.com, called Idle Weekend. See what he did there? Very clever, very good. I like that a lot. Idle Weekend. He did a Splitting Heirs review. And on the review, he got to interview Eric Idle and the director, Robert Young. So I found a tweet about this back from November 24th of this year. I thought it was like November 24, like way in the past. But no, apparently it was November 24th this year. To which Idle retweeted and said, very kind, only I would do a nude scene with Catherine Zeta-Jones where only I was naked. To which I thought I would point out, considering it's a month later and he's probably long forgotten the thread, I pointed out, except that she is nude when she gets out of the pool. So it's not just him. And I said, also, didn't Cleese do a nude scene with Jamie Lee Curtis where only he got naked? Like the year before, right? Claiming that Idle's tweet where he said only I would do a nude scene, not true, and secondly where only he was naked.
I feel like you're kicking him.
Hang on a second. So I said, I then end the tweet, and I was being totally cheeky, but I end the tweet with, I'm also doing a piece on splitting heirs, and then in brackets, and Burn Hollywood Burn, Missing Pieces and Too Much Sun. Where's my interview? Right?
That is like you've told Idle all he needs to know about you, and the season and everything.
Yeah.
I intend to pick your crappy movie to pieces and have fun doing it.
To which he responded, and I have to say, fair play to him for this response, because if I don't get an interview, this will be fine. He says, interview ? I may have to hunt you down. Which you can take that multiple ways, but here's how I took it. I took it to mean, please don't dig these films up and talk about them in a public forum. That's how I took it to be. I took it to be, I'm not going to give you an interview, and at the same time, I'm going to send you a cease and desist. Like that's where I think Idle's coming from. And to be honest, and he did it with a very funny, like cheeky, like I think he took it in the cheeky manner.
Yeah, I think it is. That's actually a funnier. That's a genuinely funny response. Yeah, that's good.
Unless he's saying I may have to hunt you down because you're an irritating goit, which like I am.
Well, I think that's the beauty of what he said. He means both things.
He means both things. He means hunt this guy down because he's awful. Now, let's not forget, Bruce Campbell himself cut me down and then a year later did an interview with me. So it's not off the cuff.
That's true, but also he'd forgotten you and he was trying to sell a book. Now, and also you like what Bruce Campbell was selling, but I think Eric Idle can tell. It's very nice. Something nice about Heirs, which is a movie that I did and I'm reasonably proud of. And then someone else is doing a series about Split. He must think like, think of Eric Idle, like, no one's talked about this movie in 20 years. And as soon as there's a global plague, people are forced to stay inside. Now they can't stop talking about it.
Well, two people.
How can the world go mad?
Two people.
But from his perspective, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, given that 0 people have talked about Splitting Heirs since it came out.
Me and someone who publicly and bravely goes by the name of Barnaby Eaton-Jones.
Who liked Splitting Heirs.
Yes. And in fact, he was responding to another tweet. I love Twitter because you can just dig deeper and deeper into all the tweets. He was responding to another tweet from a Robert J.E. Simpson at Avalard, saying, just watch Splitting Heirs. I first saw this Eric Idle comedy as a teen, and it continues to make me smile. I hadn't realized David Bowie had a part to play in its creation. See Eric's blog post on it here. So apparently there was a blog post about how David Bowie had something to do with it, which I haven't read, which is terrible. So it means that there is... Oh, it's a long old blog post, though. Who can be bothered to read all of this? I don't know what David Bowie has to do with it, but okay. David Bowie had something to do with Splitting Heirs. I don't know that we can hold that against him, though. To which Barnaby Eaton-Jones responded... it's a criminally overlooked comedy, always makes me hoot. So I did not dig into this, but okay. So Barnaby Eaton-Jones says a criminally overlooked comedy. Sanford Reed says, very well put. It is criminally overlooked. Great to see Eric Sykes in a small role as the doorman and Stratford Johns as a butler. I would quite fancy a Blu-ray release. Eric Idle says, I'm unsure who owns it. Sanford says, Universal was the studio that released it in the US and UIP in the UK. There is such a load of old rubbish that makes it onto the Blu-ray format. I don't understand why things with built-in fan bases such as this and Nuns on the Run linger in the libraries. And I'm like, built-in fan bases? I mean, so far we found 3 of us, and I'm only...
Like, if your fan base is so small that talking about the film attracts the bloke that made it, that feels like built-in is a bit strong.
Then Eric Idle, who apparently was very invested in this tweet thread, said it was the last film of Handmade. I think he's referring to Nuns on the Run. But that was sold a couple of times. We fought for and managed to hang on to The Life of Brian, so we own that. And Robert says, we being Python? No, Robert, some other we. Like, of course, Python. Think you're pretty unique as a group with regard of the ownership of your output, something that the fans benefit from, and something that Python benefits from by repackaging it 100 times over and getting us all to buy it over and over again. And then he says, thanks for sharing. I shared the stage with Robert Young at a fest some years ago, but never really got chatting to him about his work. Funny, the pieces I'd never really connected. Tonight, I'm revisiting Nuns on the Run. And then Sanford says, good choice. I had the honour of chatting with Jonathan Lynn last winter, and he had a very warm memories of working on the film. To which Eric Idle again responded, we worked together since the Pembroke Smoker in February 1963, which obviously is a reference to, I've got to imagine, like a school, Pembroke College, Cambridge. A smoker is like a little, like, vaudeville concert, right? That they used to throw, like a little, had stand-up and music. And
idea, mate.
It was. A smoker at Cambridge College was that. But it's interesting that Eric Idle was very involved with someone who loved splitting hairs. But when I mentioned it, gave me a quick retort, although a retort that I will be happy with and take to my grave.
I think it's a great retort, mate. I think if Eric Idle can tell you to fuck off in an entertaining way,
I'm very happy about that.
The thing is, you are attempting to make hay out of the worst moments of his career.
Yes.
I feel like that's
I'm definitely the scumbag in all of this. That goes without saying.
Yeah, I mean, if those 3 Splitting Hairs fans listen to this podcast by mistake,
yes,
they are going to come after you with pitchforks, mate.
No, I love them all, and anyone who has been a fan of Python or post-Python stuff, I am your brethren. I was and continue.
I don't think they're gonna hear that, mate.
No,
I think they are gonna want to hunt you down.
That's fine. My friend and wonderful actor, who you can see both on the Ratched series but also the Hollywood series that are currently streaming on Netflix, Herbert Russell, who earlier this year I had the wonderful pleasure of speaking to on my Crosstalk video podcast series. Herbert responded to Eric and I, John is a delightful interviewer and quite a screen buff. You should absolutely do an interview. I was a guest on his Crosstalk podcast and we had a great chat. So Herb, desperately trying to salvage.
Eric's going to listen to the first 5 minutes of our Burn Hollywood Burn podcast and be like, yep, that's pretty much what I was expecting.
Yes. But how about that? How about that?
2 bored middle-aged blokes kicking me in the testicles over and over again for an hour while people in sheds chuck him a few quid on Patreon.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, no evidence that anyone in a shed has given me anything on Patreon. So please, if you're in a shed people right now and you have a few cents to throw me on Patreon, that would be lovely. Patreon, patreon.com/aftermoviediner.
Yeah.
Sponsor and donate today.
For 45 minutes before you get to hear about the movie.
That's fine. They love that, though. They love it. And if they don't love it, I honestly...
It's part of our quotation marks charm.
I just don't care anymore, though. I'm
with you, mate. I'm with you.
If the point of creativity is all you hear all day long, and this is true of Idle, because I was watching an interview with him today where he was talking about the freedom that the BBC gave him when they first started on Python, and how ever since then he's been dogged by executives and producers who would deny him that freedom when it comes to creating and so on. All creatives strive for, the freedom to be able to do whatever they want on a platform that can reach an audience.
So you're saying that you have reached your creative zenith. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
That us now talking about a movie that we're not talking about is, in your opinion, the pinnacle of your creative career.
Listen, I'm very happy with it. It's not the pinnacle. The pinnacle of my creative career so far has probably been The Pleasant Thing 2, because it's the one that people are streaming the most.
Is that true?
Yeah. Truer Crime.
Do you think the film series helped?
Truer Crime is my personal favourite, but The Pleasant Thing 2 is getting more streams.
But do you think the film series helped it?
Yeah, I'm sure people listened to the podcast and was like,
great.
"Oh,
well, that's what we did it for, mate. That's great."
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm very happy about that. So no, I just think we live in a world. This was my thing. I forget who I was talking to, but we definitely live in a situation where the future goes one of two ways in terms of the internet, right? Either all the big corporations who have failed to adopt, adapt, and improve throughout this pandemic, slowly fall by the wayside, and lots of little intriguing independent trees sprout in their place, or, and what is far more likely, is that big corporations just come now for the internet, and they go, well, if everything has to be online, we need to own online, and they start shutting down a lot of the independence that people like me and Matt Farley and others have to produce, create, and put stuff out into the world relatively cheaply in the way that we do it, right? And so if that second eventuality happens, and it can happen now because of the what was that thing that they passed, net neutrality thing? If that does happen, I want to make sure I am creating until they tear my USB mic from my laptop and haul me out into the street. So I want to get as much stuff.
Fair, mate. Probably only a matter of time.
Exactly, and I want to get as much stuff
with or without the Net Neutrality Act.
Right,
just people with taste and ears.
Go. Enough is enough. But in all seriousness, I really want to just get out into the world all of the things that are inherently make me happy. And believe it or not, talking with you about Eric Idle movies is a nostalgic happy fest for me, because I've seen all but one of these films, and they are a part of my teenage life where I was like, I need to ravenously devour and own everything post Python. In fact, in my attempt to make myself a slightly less shitty to Eric Idle, I did respond, I'm honestly a huge fan. The whole series of me doing this stemmed from me as a kid having to own every Python and post-Python related stuff I could find. I had missing pieces on VHS. I tracked down the out-of-print Life of Brian, Romance and a Double Bass, and even had The Odd Job. So I did try and show him my fan credentials.
Like if he ever listens to what we have to say about him, I'm just going to feel sad.
Yeah, no, probably. But that it is the way that it is. And to bring up Romance and a Double Bass, the director of Romance and a Double Bass, or Love and a Cello, also directed Splitting Heirs. So that's the...
Wow. Oh, I can see why. I mean, he's clearly a man with a firm grasp of comedy.
Yep. So that's the connection there.
Who is he? Who is Robert Young? And why is he directing films?
He's a British director who had worked with Cleese back in the day, and he did Splitting Heirs, and then went on to salvage Fierce Creatures when the original director kind of fell off. So he also worked with Cleese on Fierce Creatures.
But that wasn't very good either.
No.
So salvage is a bit generous.
Well, I mean salvage in the sense that he allowed Cleese to do whatever Cleese wanted to do.
Which was make a not very good film.
What has Robert Young done other than... he did GBH with Michael Palin and Robert Lindsay. Laugh a minute in that one. And apart from that, he did Hostage in 1992 with your favourite Sam Neill.
Oh.
UK Black Ops agent is sent to Argentina to find a kidnapped special ops analyst and take out the terrorists who took him. Wow, this is a cumbersome and tongue-twisty description on IMDb. It only gets 4.9 stars out of 10, and that's out of 204 votes. So, yeah. He directed Blood Monkey. That's amazing. I own Blood Monkey. I didn't know that he directed Blood Monkey.
What is Blood Monkey?
Blood Monkey is one of those straight to sci-fi channel movies with F. Murray Abraham in it, about a renowned but mad professor who leads a small group of American students into the jungles of Africa to investigate a remote tribe of killer chimpanzees.
Why do you own that?
Well, because it's one of those, 20 movies that nobody else wants on a box set that I own. I did not know that. I own more Robert Young movies than I care to admit.
No, you own more Robert Young movies than you should.
Right. I own Fierce Creatures.
You probably own more Robert Young movies than Robert Young.
Oh, he did direct Jeeves and Wooster, however. He said, he said, I've always loved laughter. This is Robert Young. I've always loved laughter, and to make comedy is a joy, but very difficult. Edmund Kean said, as he lay with death hours away, dying is easy, comedy is hard. To work with Cleese and Idle was always a pleasure, not to forget the joy of all Michael Palin. To see them manipulate a line and fine-tune it was a lesson in itself. But the most pleasurable comedy to do was Jeeves and Wooster. Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry worked without rancor, which one could not always say about the Pythons.
Yeah, the problem with Jeeves and Wooster is it ought to be much better than it is, because Brian Laurie is so great, but literally everybody else in those shows is a gurning monstrosity.
Yeah. But don't start shitting on Jeeves and Wooster. I mean, Robert Young might actually listen to this. Eric Idle probably has far better things to do.
No, come on. I'm just saying, everybody in Jeeves and Wooster, apart from Brian Laurie, is a gurning monstrosity.
Yeah, unless Robert Young is dead, of course. No, he's still alive. Still alive. Thank God for that. So he might listen and might even do an interview. Who knows? Well, I'll track him down and see if he wants to talk for an hour about romance with a double bass.
Yeah, Love and a Cello and Blood Monkey. I'd like you to do an interview with him where you keep calling it Love and a Cello, and he keeps saying romance with a double bass. And you go, yeah, that's what I said. So anyway, on the set of Love and a Cello,
I think it would be amazing if it was just like from Love and a Cello to Blood Monkey, the Robert Young story. Okay, I need to move on because I have all sorts of things. I have emails and everything. So I got to be quick. What do you
want to do? Come on, podcast host. What do you want to do next?
Next is emails. So to introduce this email and these messages, I need to sing this. When the battle is fought, when the war is won, when the end is near and another day is done, when you're working in pajamas and it's anything but fun, and you really want some emails because it's a mildly average podcast that you run, and nobody ever writes you, but you can always count on one. Andy Lunn, Andy Lunn, Andy Lunn. Andy Lunn is just coming through. I have to say, we have not one email from him.
I do feel like you ought to work on an actual theme tune because...
Yeah. He liked that, though. He said, I hope all is well. He says, hello, fellas. He addresses both of us, not just me.
All right.
Hello, fellas.
I'm listening, then. I'm listening.
Now Jim's poked up. Wait a minute. Yeah. I hope all is well. Cheers for reading out my recent ramblings. I probably should have prefaced the section about my old man with my late father, although it was amusing to hear it play out as it did. And please don't worry, there is no harm done. Lovely to hear my own personal jingle. This is a rather touching honour for which I salute you. So he's just heard it a second time, and he salutes me. So enough of your negativity, Wallace.
I'm not saying it's a bad theme tune. I'm saying put a little more effort into it. I'm with you, Andy. I'm saying it's promising.
Yeah.
You just use a bit of music. That's all.
I think Andy appreciates the slapshot manner of it. I think if he's listened this far, he's probably down with it,
wouldn't he? That's what you're saying. Yeah. If he's listened to us, he would have to appreciate sort of a game laziness.
He said, it was refreshing to hear that I'm not alone in my dislike for Jonathan Pryce. I too agree that he is outstanding in The Two Popes, but that he is normally pretty awful in anything that he appears in. As a Bond fan, I'd like to rate Tomorrow Never Dies quite highly, as it is in effect a top-tier Brosnan Bond. I mean, it has Vincent I Could Shoot You in Stuttgart Schiavelli in it, for Pete's sake. But It is timely in that it reflects how media was taking over in the mid to late 90s. And yet, Price is absolutely fucking awful as the bad guy. I pretty much hate every scene that he's in. I groaned when he turned up in Game of Thrones and rejoiced when his time was up. He puts me off more regular Brazil viewings. He's a knob in Haunted Honeymoon and could potentially spoil the next season of The Crown. I don't mind him in Glengarry Glen Ross, but that's because he ends up whimpering at the hands of Pacino. To conclude, he is the reason that I have not yet embarked on Don Quixote, which is, I think, what we were talking about when we first came up with the post-Python season idea. And he said, after having been intrigued to see it for years, why did that version finally get made? Why did that fucker get cast when there were plenty of other actors of his age knocking about? Anyhow, I look forward to your Eric Idle series, although having heard your discussion earlier today, I had the One Foot in the Grave song in my head for most of the afternoon. Thanks for that. All the best, Lun.
Hello?
They say I might as well face the truth, that I am just too long in the tooth. I started to deteriorate, and now I've passed my own sell-by date. Oh, I am no spring chicken, it's true. I have to pop my teeth into chew, and my old knees have started to knock. I've just got too many miles on the clock, so I'm a wrinkly, crinkly, set in my ways. It's true that my body has seen better days, but give me half a chance and I can still misbehave. 1 foot in the grave. 1 foot in the grave.
And we'll get back to, I think we'll talk about, we've got one more email, and then we'll talk about Splitting Heirs, and then we'll get back to Andy's questions on Splitting Heirs specifically at the end of the show. So a little bit of Andy now, a little bit of Andy later. That's how we're going to break it up. But we got an email from Shane A. Bassett, who regular listeners will know. He is our Down Under listener. He is from Australia. He listens regularly, and he is the one who is constantly asking us to do Hiding Out with John Cryer, which was streaming for a while. It was streaming for a while, and I thought, oh, maybe we could do it while it was streaming. It's now no longer streaming, so sadly, we still haven't got around to it. and bless him, he keeps coming back to us all the time and keeps listening and writing and stuff like that, which is wonderful, Shane. We really do appreciate it. The fact that I keep not doing Hiding Out with John Cryer must be a constant source of pain, and I'm very sorry. But he does send us this email. G'day, boys. Inspired by your decision to go down an Eric Idle rabbit hole, I dug out my DVD copy of Burn, Hollywood, Burn. He actually sent me a photograph of it. I've not seen this dreadful movie since it was first released on VHS, and nobody wanted to rent it at the video store I worked at, even when it went down to weekly hire. I don't know what that means. Probably a cheaper rate. Anyway, I struggled right from the opening graffiti credits and watching as it went on, getting worse by the minute. It is an unfunny sleaze smorgasbord featuring horrible producers, which I forgot all about. Attached is the picture of my DVD, which I may burn. But note, Richard Gere is listed on the cover as an actor who appears, but he does not, unless it was a cut scene, but the bloopers through the end credits didn't feature him either. Keep up the good work, but I refuse to watch any more Eric Idle movies unless you pick Eric the Viking, which he's not in. I mean, his name is in the title, but he's not in the film. I vaguely remember it being okay, says Shane. Hope Jim releases more poetry soon too. I love his style and recommend the prose to my mates if they want to read solid modern poetry. So there we go, a little bit of ego strokey for the... Go to jeawallace.com, and pick up a copy today. Either that or click through any of the links. We have multiple links on aftermoviediner.com for Jim's book. We have ads.
And on that page at the top, there's a link to a poem I had on the American Journal of Poetry, which you can read for free.
Excellent. Wonderful. I strongly endorse Jim's poetry. He ends the email with Merry Christmas from Down Under, the almost COVID-free centre of the Southern Hemisphere. Cheers. Cheers, not cheese. Cheers, Shane Adam Bassett. And I have to say, Shane, the fact that you keep listening, as I've said again, is an absolute joy. Thank you so much for writing. I would like to say
cheese, Shane.
Cheese, Shane. Cheese. So how about that for lots of messages and comments? And
it's almost like we're not fundamentally unlistenable to idiots.
Yeah,
wasting everybody's time.
So how about this? It's only the second episode of the Eric Idle season. I've got an Eric Idle insults me on Twitter story, and we have multiple messages and comments.
It's almost like we should stick to terrible movies.
But anyway, let us talk about finally, as we enter the third hour of the podcast, let us talk about. Actually, no, before we do that, let us have a commercial break, because I keep forgetting to put in a commercial break, and Spreaker does insist that I put commercials in, and now is a good kind of commercial break moment before we go to talk to the movies. So here is a commercial. Very sorry we have to have these, but it does keep the podcast ticking along. It keeps my website funded. So and Spreaker insists on it. Otherwise, they would be charging me tons and tons of money to put this out there. So keeping the podcast free, here are a couple of bad commercials. I do not endorse anything that they say, and I apologize for them having to be here. Fuck Geico, especially. Anyway.
I really hope it's a Geico ad.
Yeah, fuck Geico and whatever car company is trying to sell you some bullshit this season. We're back. Thank you so much for listening to those commercials and keeping the After Movie Diner free as best we can. So with that, let's talk about 1993's Splitting Heirs, which is sort of a hodgepodge combination of The Jerk, Kind Hearts and Coronets, and I don't know, just a series of very unfunny concepts that were written on a napkin.
See, I feel if I was being generous here, and I was being generous because first of all we started with Burn Hollywood Burn, which is about one of the worst, most objectionable pieces of garbage I've ever sat through, because it was so obviously like black-hearted and cruel and made by monsters. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this is just, I felt like, was made by somebody who's not terribly secure in their own talent and doesn't know why they're funny. I think it's very instructive that Cleese is the only funny thing in it. Not that Cleese is exactly funny, but he is being funny with what he's given, right? In other words, whatever's happening, like Idle knows what Cleese can make funny, if that makes sense. But I don't think Idle knows why he's funny or what he can do that's amusing. And every single thing that happens in the movie is like the path of least resistance. You know what I mean? It's just like, so we'll do a setup where one character has to try and kill another character, but there's no risks taken in that concept at all, right? No. But it's just like, there's nothing. Like, how do you have a setup where the backbone of the movie, plot wise, is him trying to bump off Moranis, but there's not a single attempt that's even like. It's not that it's like not funny. It's like, how would you expect it to be taken except not funny?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
None of them are like, did he really imagine people sitting in a cinema and a bit where he falls off a window and like goes into a pool, people would laugh? Like, I mean, being really honest with yourself, would they? And the answer is, well, no, of course not. But he doesn't try harder, and it doesn't strike me as laziness. It strikes me as, like I say, I think it's insecurity, because I don't think he knows, he doesn't want to risk anything at all. It's like a totally risk-free movie, but not in a lazy way. It feels kind of, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah,
no, completely. And it's, so anyway, go quick. No, it does. It completely smacks of that. But at the same time, I just, like, I don't know what he was I don't know what he was going for, because the only thing in it, outside of a couple of one-liners and what Cleese is doing. So outside of what Cleese is doing, which is really making something out of nothing. Like Cleese really took something and was like, oh, I know how to play this to make it funny. Outside of that, and outside of a couple of one-liners, which Idle is kind of known for. Like Idle is known for sort of the pithy bon mot. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be gut-wrenchingly funny, but like, wasn't that very witty kind of thing. He's sort of known for those little, word plays or whatever. And there's a couple of those in there. But outside of that, there's just nothing in the film that you would kind of go, well, what do you think was going to happen in terms of humor? Outside of really rather amateurish, like sex and knob gags, none of which land, and all of which have been done by a million other people much, much better. Because they're a well done. Like, I understand why people have some nostalgia for the Carry On series. I understand why that bawdy End of the Pier movie series is still beloved by people, because there was something kind of barefaced about what they were doing. Like, no one was hiding what they were doing. Like, no one was trying to be clever about what they were doing. Right. It was, Barbara Windsor loses her bra, Sid James chuckles like a sleazy milkman, and everyone else goes all mummy and runs into a shed or something.
Yeah.
But I'm just, and that's fine for Carry On. I think any time Python has got too close to sort of that, Benny Hill / Carry On obsession with like tits or sex, it sort of comes off as, there's only one really good sketch they ever did, and it's probably the sex ed class in Meaning of Life, where they could really go all out and just be like, no, he's going to have sex with his wife in front of a class of boys, and the joke is all of them are bored by it. Like that at least made the joke on the side of the kids, not the joke on the side of Lorks a Lordy, look at all the bosoms. You know what I mean? By comparison, the joke at the end of the movie where lots of topless rollerbladers rollerblade Eric Graham Chapman off a cliff, isn't funny. Like, it's just, here's some gratuitous tits for the sake of gratuitous tits. So whenever Idle often quotes the marriage guidance counselor sketch where they brought Carol Cleveland in to play a woman as, he's like, when we needed real sex on screen, meaning when people needed to find the woman attractive, we brought in Carol Cleveland. And to my way of thinking, like, the marriage guidance counselor sketch isn't so much funny as it is sort of very obvious. And what's odd is this movie, Splitting Heirs, comes almost 30 years later. It's just shy of 30 years, about 25 years later of that sketch. And Idle's attitudes to women, seemingly, certainly in a comedy scenario, haven't changed. His thing is like, well, if they were funny women, it would be men dressed up as women, because that's inherently hilarious, right? But as they're meant to be sexy women, let's just have them be like horrible, sexy stereotypes, and that'll be funny, right? And it's like, well, I mean, no, it's not.
But that's another weird thing about it, right? Is that you got there's like several things going on that he obviously thought will be funny. There's going to be one character that tries to kill another character over and over again. That's got juice. We could do something with that. Then there's going to be a thing where he doesn't know. He knows that she's his mum. She doesn't know, and she's a bit of a sex bot. So there'll be a continuous thing where she's trying to seduce him, and he's having to fight her off. That'll have juice. But and I suspect it's, I don't know, like something to do with sketch writing. I don't know, but you can't. That whole plot line with Hershey doesn't work, because right at the beginning of the whole thing, she goes, "Oh, my baby, where are you really?" And like, Idle's in the room when she says it. So, oh, Eric, she knows that she doesn't have the baby. She knows it's out there. If you pop out and go, by the way, I've just found out I've got the rattle in the blanket, so it's me, then it's like, oh, great. So no movie then. So it's like, okay, then great, but you have to do the work. Like,
but also, again, the Hershey thing doesn't, I mean, outside of that, and you're right with that plot point, but
sorry, but all I was saying was, there's no courage in the conviction of that joke. Even if you're trying to make that joke that his mum's trying to have sex with him and he can't, but also for reasons can't tell her why, that's like gross out, but also, I don't know, maybe that's supposed to be funny. But if that's the joke, that's a joke you have to tell. You can't set that up as a joke and then, like, no, it never really happens. Like, the joke is Hershey's like a sex pot. That's it.
Well, because if you're going to... But the problem with that joke is not that joke isn't in there. It's that Eric Idle doesn't know how to play it. And we'll get on to Idle as a leading man. But if you look at the only other example that I can think of right off the top of my head is Back to the Future, where his mum is trying to have sex, well, not have sex with him, but make out with him in the car. He can't tell her, I'm your son from the future.
Right. That works very well. He obviously can't tell her.
But the way Michael J. Fox plays it, right, you know, with a mixture of heightened nerves and repulsion and, you know, I don't know what I meant to do here, kind of.
But that's the thing, right? Those are what's interesting there in that moment. What's great about it is that there's something at stake. He can't just go and then run away, right? Because like he will literally die if he doesn't play this scene out properly. So his mum and dad meet and live up. So he can't just leave. So he has to stick it out, and that's what makes it great. Like in other words, all these things go into it to set up that joke, but you can't just go, that's the joke, and do no work, or it won't happen. Right,
but I still claim that the two things. First of all, Hershey is too outrageously a sex pot. Like, it's just...
Yeah, and also clearly younger than Eric Idle.
Right, so I'm just about to get onto that. So one of the things that came out in one of the Idol interviews is that Hershey, because she was a bit jealous of Catherine Zeta-Jones, wouldn't refuse to age up. Like, all they could do was get her to wear like a white blonde wig. But she is meant to be, you know, like in her, 60s, 70s, 60s? And she's clearly not. And Idol is clearly meant to be younger. Like, he's meant to maybe be in his, like, 20s, early 30s, and he's clearly not.
30s, he's aiming for, yeah.
Right. So that's the problem there, is that doesn't work right off the bat. The second problem is that she's playing it too cartoonishly sex part, and Idol is playing it... Idol isn't playing the reality of it. Idol is playing it like a guy in a Python sketch who doesn't want the attentions of the randy housewife. He's not playing the reality of, I'm her son, but I can't tell her that yet because stuff will happen, bad things will happen, I'll lose whatever, right? So because it's not carefully constructed, you have, and because Hershey didn't age up, and because everything is miscast, and that, you know, it doesn't work, and it just leads to a series of scenes where, you know, Idol looks like faintly uncomfortable, but not in the way that he should. You know, he looks uncomfortable that he's... It comes across that you're embarrassed for Barbara Hershey, and you should never be embarrassed for someone acting on... Like, once you've stepped out of that and gone, oh my God, I can't believe Barbara Hershey had to perform this, you've lost the audience, because I'm not thinking about the characters and what the dynamic of the scene is. I'm thinking like, ugh. Because the whole scene with Barbara Hershey eating her vitamins, right? First of all, that's like a fucking sub. You know those movies that came out that were meant to be like Scary Movie or Airplane or whatever, but they were just called like Movie or whatever. You know those films that came out? They were like subpar parodies. First of all, that's like what that joke belongs in one of them, like her licking her vitamins off her hand like a tiger belongs in one of those films, not in this movie. But secondly, because she isn't aged up, it's just like, why is this woman being served vitamin? And it's never even commented on. Like, you're meant to kind of go, oh, I guess she's his mother.
They were
so
drugs or like a refuge from the 60s. I didn't even get that, Jack.
Yeah, so it's sort of weird. And again, it needed to be, someone like an Honor Blackman, right? Who
that could work.
In the 80s and 90s was in a sitcom, not a very good sitcom, but on British TV, where she played like the randy and still attractive older woman who everyone else was everyone else was sort of cringed by, because here's this woman who's far more assertive and attractive than we are, but she's older, and that was the gag. And if it was someone who was like an Honor Blackman or and they did it in the Wedding Crashers, Jane Seymour in the Wedding Crashers or whatever. Like, there are older actresses who could have done the part. Or she could have done the part if she had, aged up a bit. But as it stands, it's just fucking bizarre and doesn't work. And yet it's threaded throughout the whole film. So it's sort of just a bit odd. Anyway, we should probably just quickly explain for people who don't know. This is a movie in which a baby swap leads to Idle fortuitously working for a company owned by the dukedom of what's the Duke of Bournemouth? There's a company owned by the dukedom of Bournemouth, which he's actually an heir. He's actually the heir of. He doesn't know that he's the heir of yet. He's grown up with an Indian family in a joke that Idle himself admits has ripped off The Jerk. Because Indians and Pakistanis are prevalent in certain parts of London, he lives with an Indian family and has been raised as a South Asian character, even though he's clearly white and clearly not Asian. And that joke doesn't land either. It's like he completely spoils and fails to land that joke as well. And then he works for this company. The company brings an American dude over from New York, only to find out that he thinks he's the heir to the fortune because he's grown up with the mother. It was all a big misunderstanding. Idle wants what Moranis has, and is convinced by a balmy lawyer played by John Cleese that one way around it would be to kill Moranis and then step out and say, actually, I'm the real Lord, and then the House of Lords might accept it. If he tried to do it now, it wouldn't look good on British nobility, so they wouldn't let it pass, kind of thing. So that kind of kicks into running this not very funny plot about trying to bump off Moranis, which kind of comes and goes. And then there's a running gag where every single woman in the film, for no reason whatsoever, finds Eric Idle irresistible, even though Eric Idle dresses like an accountant going on a field day to a church fete. Like, at no point is he even made to look like, young, sexy, or anything at all. In fact, he walks around in a Pac-a-Mac most of the time. It's sort of completely bizarre that you would have a costume designer who would look at that and look at the... Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all by the by. None of the jokes land, and it doesn't really work. And it has a half-assed wrap up where everything seemingly works out with literally no consequence. And... leaves you with a kind of...
People die and they're murdered and nobody pays for it and everybody's forgiven. And it always... It's sort of a weird... It's clearly the aim is to sail by on charm, right? Like, that's what it's supposed to be. It's like, it's not worry about plot. It's not worry about consequences. Let's not worry about anybody being good or bad. Like, no... Like, at some point, it's like, is Catherine Zeta-Jones a gold digger? A trollop, or like a heart of gold. Like, really, she loves him, and her character is not consistent. Hershey's character isn't consistent. The moment she looks at what's also like encapsulates neatly how little they care about like plot points and consequence is that, having gone through the whole movie not telling anybody who he is for literally no reason, because the only reason he doesn't do it is they might not believe me. That's it, right? I won't tell them because they might not believe me. And then Hershey sees a rattle. Eric Idle is not holding the rattle. Like, the baby's got the rattle.
Idle is feet away. She sees the rattle and goes, "Oh my God, the rattle! You're my son." You go, okay, well, like it didn't need to be that horribly illogical a leap. Do you know what I mean? Like, it could have just been. And it's like, well, we're done with that now. The whole thing is like, well, we're done with the bit where they don't know who he is. Now we move on to the bit where they do know who he is. And we've got no interest in how we get from one state of affairs to the other state of affairs. It's like, I don't care. And there's no...
Well, the subplot then becomes John Cleese is bumping off like members of the household.
Like, he's like bumping off... Like, it sort of makes sense in bumping off the kid, but it makes no sense in bumping off the mother. It's like, oh, no witnesses. But... she's not a witness to anything except the thing you need to prove. So why bump her off?
Right. Yeah. He bumps off the cook, even though the cook is the only one who, could prove that Moranis is her kid and not the Duke of Bournemouth, which makes sense. I mean, none of it makes any sense. And it also makes no sense that, there's a voiceover, even though Idle's character knows that Shagrind is doing this, because Shagrind has showed up earlier and, done a lot of...
The voiceover was like, I couldn't figure out what was going on. What the... Oh, Jesus, really? That's the thing. It's like, there's no... I mean, it's obviously, he's obviously a sketch writer, because it's like an idea of, well, this will... I mean, you get the impression that maybe Idle had more confidence, or maybe it's like, he wrote most of this stuff on his own for Python, right? He didn't really have a partner. Idle was one of the few ones who didn't have a writing partner, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like he either got to the point where he's deeply insecure about his own ideas and he could do songs and stuff because they didn't know how to write songs, they didn't know how to write lyrics, so they'd let him do that. But I can't figure out if he brought them an idea, like if Idle turns up in front of Palin and Jones and Chapman and Cleese and says, I've got this idea where one character's trying to bump off another character, and here's my ideas. He's gonna take a knife and try and stab him. He's got all the things happen to me. They go, yeah, all right. Well, what if he does this? And what if he does that? And what if the other thing? So I could see how we'd bring them a concept, and they would be the ones that would actually introduce the things that would be funny about that concept. Because there's no art about anything that happens in the movie. There's no sense of timing or possibility, right? That's the thing that is completely absent from the movie, now I'm thinking about it, is the sense of what is possible here. Right. We've got these things. This is the setup. This is that we've got Moranis is no slouch, right? As a comic actor, I've got John Cleese. Hershey knows what she's doing. Zeta Jones, if she can get over whatever weird accent she's doing, is also not a slouch when it comes to just there's a natural charisma there, and she's done comedy. So there's stuff to work with there, but there's no sense of what could we do with this. Let's just get through it. Let's get through it and try and be charming, and maybe nobody will notice that I'm not funny. And that's what the movie says to me. It's like a deeply revealing portrait of somebody who has spent the last 20 years of his life coasting by on charm, hoping that nobody figures out that he's not actually funny.
So there's two things I want to say. Really, the last couple of points I really have to make about any of it. And the two are... This is... So, Prominent Features was set up just before Fishkal Wonder came out. It was a Python conglomerate movie production group that said, well, all the Pythons have got to a point where they want to do some films and some solo stuff. It seems like Hollywood is still remotely interested. So Cleese had a Fishkal Wonder. I think Gilliam had... I forget which one he was putting out around about this time. It was after Baron Munchausen, and I forget which one it was, but
Monkeys?
No, because that was Universal. Maybe it was Universal Prominent Features. Maybe that was involved in it. I don't know. But Terry Jones had one. Cleese had Fishkal Wonder. Idle had this he wanted to do. Palin had American Friends and various other ones. And they just thought, well, let's just put together Prominent Features. It's a funny joke, but also it would give us the chance that if we want to do something as Python, we can kind of lump it under there as well, and yada, yada, yada. Fishkal Wonder comes out, and here's the big difference. And the reason why I compare this one so closely to Fishkal Wonder is that, in Fishkal Wonder, Cleese had two major things. First of all, he's like, it's an Ealing comedy. I've hired an Ealing comedy director. I'm clearly homaging Ealing comedy. And yes, I've written my own story and all the rest of it. But Ealing comedy, that's what I'm going for. I want to resurrect that, right? Second thing is that he knew full well. He was like, I've never played like a leading man, and I know that the leading man has to be, in this movie, a romantic leading man. And he's like, no one's going to buy me being romantic as I am right now, with someone like Jamie Lee Curtis. I have to write this and perform this and be helped in it by my leading lady to sell this idea. To sell this idea. The original ending of A Fish Called Wanda has it essentially hinting at the idea that Wanda's just going to get to America, or wherever they're going, South America rather, and rip Archie off and fuck off again. And he didn't like that idea. He actually wanted to end it with the idea that Wanda and him actually are together, and this is a real love story, and there's a reason why they're together. And yes, there were crooks and money and Otto and all the other stuff, but like essentially there has to be a reason why we get together. But he also realized that like, and Jamie Lee Curtis helped him with this, or so legend goes, that like instead of having a straight sex scene between the two of them, it's much funnier in everyone's seen women get naked in comedies. It would be much funnier to have the man get naked, and Cleese was like, all right then, I think I can make that work. He worked out, he exercised, he wrote the funny scene where he's interrupted by the family and whatever, and he actually like thought about what that means, right, as a concept. And he, there's a lot of thought put into A Fish Called Wanda, whether people like it or not. With Splitting Heirs, it's all of those things, but with none of the structural thought or integrity. So it's, well, fuck it, I'll just do an Ealing comedy. So Kind Hearts and Coronets has nigh on very similar plot. So, someone trying to bump someone off so they can become part of the British aristocracy. So he takes that almost wholesale from Kind Hearts and Coronets. And he has a bunch of leading ladies in it, all of whom find him attractive for no reason. There's no attempt to make that structurally integral to the plot. There's no attempt to... In fact, the only time it even comes close to it is this idea that Catherine Zeta-Jones might be carrying his baby, in which case, if he does reveal it, at least the lineage of the dukedom is still intact. But like, sorry, was I meant to like was the lineage of the dukedom really what we were meant to be interested in? But I at least appreciate that. But then it also seems super weird for then her to be like, no, actually it's Moranis' baby, and I just told you that because I thought you were trying to kill everyone. And then you're like, well, wait, you thought he was trying to kill people, and your plan was, instead of, I don't know, go to the police or show evidence
to stop him,
was to say, I'm carrying your baby? Like, that's weird as well.
That's presumably more motive to kill Moranis, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're trying to kill my husband. So what if I told you that I'm pregnant with your child? That would help, right? No, that would help if he was trying to kill you. It doesn't help unless Moranis is pregnant with his child. It doesn't work.
Right, but there's no.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like.
But there's no. But hang on. But there's no attempt to cast, either an age appropriate or even a comedy chops appropriate. But the reason why Jamie Lee Curtis and John Cleese work, despite the age gap, is that Jamie Lee Curtis's character is a strong-willed, intelligent, feisty character. She's not just a tart with a heart. She's the mastermind.
She's not as old as Cleese, but she's older. She's like in her mid-30s at that point.
But she feels like a woman. She doesn't feel like a girl or a teenager. And not only that, but she is the brains of the outfit. She is literally manipulating everybody else. She's the most intelligent person in the movie. And she's not just doing it through her feminine wiles. She's doing it through a whole bunch of different things. And so... Cleese has thought about that character, and he also let Jamie Lee Curtis come on board and make suggestions and play in her character, and they rehearsed for a long time and so on and so forth. in Splitting Heirs, it's just like Eric Idle's looked at A Fish Called Wanda and gone, Ealing comedy, check. Lots of young naked birds who want to bone me, check. Me as leading man. But again, also with the leading man thing, and I think this plays into your theory of insecurity and even what Idle has said in his biography about his insecurity in general. It's the leading man thing is tricky for some comedians. I always point to people like Dan Aykroyd and more recently Jason Sudeikis, and even your man from Arrested Development, Bateman. People who were used to playing, if you look at Aykroyd and Sudeikis are the best examples of a kind of Palin and Idle American version of Palin and Idle. And what I mean by that is they were very, very funny on SNL, but they used to play lots of different characters. They used to put wigs on or mustaches or beards or whatever it was, do voices and stuff like that. Like they were very gung-ho. Bill Hader's another one, very gung-ho about like putting on costumes and makeup and playing funny characters, right? Which work in sketches. But unfortunately, when you want a movie career, that only works to show up as the comedic best friend or the cameo in the grocery store or whatever it is, right? You can't, trying to be the romantic lead is difficult. And even if you look like Jason Sudeikis, who by all accounts is a handsome man, he's still not interesting. Every time I see him play a leading man, I'm like, that's nice and all, but I miss him. And the same with Dan Aykroyd. Whenever Dan Aykroyd tried to be either a leading man or tried to be cool or tried to be nice, I'm like, it's fine, but it's not as funny as when he was on SNL and could play all these different characters. It's why the Ghostbusters works, because you're not hanging the movie on his shoulders. You're hanging it on Bill Murray's shoulders, and he has a much different vibe, right? Cleese gets away with being a leading man in Fish Called Wanda because of all the reasons we've gone into and because it's very carefully crafted movie. I don't think he would work consistently in that role, but it works in that role. Idle, who on Python and even on Rutland Weekend Television was, like Palin, much more adept at putting on funny costumes, putting on funny voices, all that kind of stuff, and playing, jokey parts or weird parts or whatever.
But the best thing Idle did in Python was being like what he was in the group, actually, is very slightly outside of the movie and commenting on what's happening. Speak up, you know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
The thing of his shtick in Python was often, I'm the bloke commenting as a kind of bloke on the street on what's going on here then kind of a thing. And it always worked really, really well. It was sort of a straight man act, but really it was kind of cheeky chappy turned, making a funny joke at the expense of characters or whatever.
Right.
But it was a good shtick.
Yeah.
But you can't turn that into a leading man thing. Just like you're saying, because it can't be. It's you can't be outside your own movie. You can't ironically comment on what your character is doing.
But the other problem is he didn't write a character. He just didn't write a character. We don't know anything about him other than he was raised by Indians and makes weird references to Hindu dream sequences, which I just don't even know why it's in the. I don't even know why that whole. It's like he watched The Jerk and was like, "Oh, I'll have a bit of that," but didn't think about why he wanted any of that. And in The Jerk, the joke is on Steve Martin. In this, it's seemingly the joke is, "Oh, there's a lot of Indians who own corner shops in London," and I'm like, well, first of all, that's not a joke. That's just a fact. That's like saying there's a lot of Asians who run laundromats in New York. Yes, and it's not funny. It just is what it is. But that's what he chooses to do. There was a really interesting article by Roger Ebert, and I'm not a fan of Ebert particularly, but when he reviewed the movie, he was. But when he reviewed the movie, he said something very astute. And he was like, the movie would have been much, much better if you had Idle as a stiff upper lip British Duke who was unveiled as being a fraud by the brash but happy-go-lucky American. There's more avenues for comedy there than having, the brash, arrogant American who has everything he wants anyway, getting more of what he wants, right? And then Idle, bumping him off, and if he succeeds, we're all meant to side with Idle. What? Like, essentially, the movie's asking us to side with a psychotic, and I don't really understand.
Yeah, that's true. Because you're right. Because it's so weird. You go, am I meant to not like Moranis? Because like they're playing him as like that thing of that English people have with Americans that you only get in English movies, and I don't think Americans realise it. I don't think anyway. That Americans are these like look at them, those lucky bastards. They get to have emotions and feelings, and they get to like be happy and not horribly repressed, So that thing of like the fact that Moranis could like, oh look, he's got some roller skates on and doesn't give a shit about anything, so of course he's happy, the lucky bastard. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah, if I didn't have to care about all the mad things that I'm labouring under, then I could strap on roller skates and go. Do you know what I mean?
Another thing. What's one of the main threads in A Fish Called Wanda? The commentary between English and Americans. And so having like two Americans show up in Splitting Heirs, but then having all this random stuff about, on one hand, Hershey is like, British men are terrible in bed, and yet she's purring after all the British men. That again doesn't make any sense. But then the other joke on reverse is like, well, all Americans are what? Nice people who happen to have roller skates. It just
there's no comment to that except that Rick Moranis is carefree and happy, but that's not anything except that Idle and I have some sympathy here, right? In that, okay, a lot of things when you put them together, and you know this from songs, right? They're just sort of half-assed ideas about things you like, things you've seen you like, things you've heard you like.
Thank you for noticing that my songs are half-assed ideas. But yes,
no, I'm just saying they always begin that way, right? Yes. Any creative project begins with a half-assed idea of what it is that you want, and it's like, I want Jeff Lynne's take on War of the Worlds, right? Not Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. I want Jeff Lynne's War of the Worlds, and that's where you start, right? And then you end up with something. But you don't just go Jeff Lynne's War of the Worlds and then go and make a cup of tea, job done. Like, you have to work at it. And at the end, maybe it doesn't sound like that, but that's how it began. And it feels like the whole movie is a bunch of things that Idle likes. So he likes the carefree American character who isn't weighed down by the weight of the world and history. And he likes the idea of one character killing another to get what he feels is his due. And he likes the idea of a woman who, while on the surface appears to be a gold digger, actually it turns out that she's, lovely and genuine and doesn't give a shit about the things that you thought that she gives a shit about. There's all these ideas in the movie that are basically reflections, things that he likes that he's seen somewhere else. And that's not like to say, that he's like a magpie or whatever. It's like that's how all things start. Like no one stands up and is like, Citizen Kane. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like bits and pieces of things you like, and then when the act of putting them together and making them work and making them make sense, that hard work you put in to tie all these disparate things together into something that makes sense and has logic and has a point and is, in the end, it's like reflective of something that you want to say. That's when you get a movie, and maybe you notice like, oh yeah, like you're saying with Fish Called Wanda, it's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but really together it makes sense as a whole because he's done the hard work to make it make sense. And this is a movie where Idle is like, well, these are the things that I like. I've got a chance to make a movie, but he doesn't do the work. And this is what I mean in the beginning. I don't think it's about laziness. I think he doesn't want to make a decision for fear of too obviously going for a laugh that he doesn't get. If you think back on the whole movie, there's no bits that are like, this bit's supposed to be funny, right? This is where the laugh comes. Like a moment where it's like, I'm going to wait for a laugh. And if it doesn't come, he would be crushed. Idle would be crushed by going for a laugh that doesn't come. So the whole movie is just charm and don't look back.
So I'm going to do one of those duality of Idle things here.
Okay.
So I disagree with something that you say, but not because I think that where you're coming from is wrong, but that I think that the movie isn't filled with things that he likes. I think there is one central thing in the movie that I think is very personal to Idle. That is the interesting nugget that he should have built a story off. Instead, he sticks something that's interesting and personal to Idle in a hodgepodge of things that literally Cleese just did. Like, and I'm not saying you watched The Fiscal Wonder and went, I'm just going to rewrite that my own thing. I'm not saying that, but there are way too many coincidences between what A Fiscal Wonder is and what Splitting Heirs tries to be, and I actually have to say that a lot of the reason why the movie doesn't land is because I don't think Idle cares about all of it. The thing that I think is central and interesting to this, and part of the whole duality of Idle thing, is the idea of telling the story of an orphan. Because both in his biography and both in reality and whatever, Idle was orphaned. He was orphaned because his dad, believe it or not, died. His dad came back from the war and literally died, was killed, trying to get from London or Portsmouth or wherever he came home from to their house. Like, he was hit and run and was killed. Like, had survived the war but got killed back in England on his way to Idle's house. And his mum, who like couldn't deal with being a single mother or whatever, like I think gave him up or shipped him off to an orphanage or something like that, only later to die. But so he had this weird like abandonment orphan thing, which he's spoken about in later years. And there is something in Splitting Heirs, there is a nugget of that idea in Idle's character. He doesn't, as I think an American filmmaker would or an American comedian would, lean on that enough or make hay of that or try and like make that the central crux of the narrative. He doesn't have the conviction, and I think this is where the insecurity comes in, to like play the more emotional things. Like one of the reason what Cleese realized in A Fiscal Wonder is, in order for me to be taken seriously, I need to play some of the emotion. You need to see Archie get sad about stuff, or you need to see Archie get angry about stuff, or you need to see Archie be a human amongst all this madcap zaniness, right? We'll leave the zaniness to Otto. Otto can be the zany one, and yeah, Cleese will have some zany moments because you've got the Python fan base coming to watch it, but ultimately Cleese had an agenda when it came to what he wanted to do. Idle doesn't necessarily have the strength of that conviction, and I think Splitting Heirs falters more because of it. And I think that so what I'm trying to say is, I think he took the idea of being an orphan and wanting to discuss that idea and wanting to talk about that and dumped it into a bunch of stuff he didn't really care about. You have to say
that the insecurity thing comes in there too, right? Because there's a feeling of he, as you say, I don't think he like consciously is ripping off Fiscal Wonder, but it's more like, well, I'm making a movie and I'm deeply insecure about that. So what do I do to like ground this story? What do I do to keep the story moving and keep people entertained? Well, what did Cleese do? And he probably is like, well, Cleese like took it in. Well, I can do that. Like I'm not ripping him off by being inspired by an Ealing comedy. That's fine. I'm not ripping off by getting American actors in. If you want to make a movie, you got to get American actors in. So that works too. Like there's, you know what I mean? It's like, how do I make my movie? And by falling back on what he thinks are just like small little like, well, what did Cleese do? It's not a rip-off. It's like, oh, I'm just taking that little part of it. It's got nothing to do with my movie that's got all these things in it. But he doesn't realise that when you stand back from everything that he's put together, it's too heavily built on those things. And actually that ends up being like the foundation of your movie. And the foundation of the movie, as you point out, is not the story of an orphan. It's an obviously ripped off Ealing comedy with some like Americans as comic relief, which is basically what Cleese made.
But like, for example, if you were interested in doing comedy about the British aristocracy, there would be more like obvious commentary on there. There isn't. If you're interested in doing comedy about like, you know, London Wall Street types, you know, traders or whatever, and the finance and blah, 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 there'd be more commentary on that. There isn't. If you were interested in discussing the American-British divide, there would be more commentary on that. There isn't. If you were, like, all the things that are in the movie I don't think he does care about. Like, I would like to see an Idle movie that he's written about stuff that he does care about. But I think that the problem is where Cleese went through therapy and therefore was a little bit more interested in actually exploring the idea of a character and a concept and an emotional arc for a person. I think Idle was more interested in just, well, how do I get a movie out where I'm in it kind of thing, and less interested in sort of.
To be fair, like if you go through a traumatic experience, like clearly he went through, and your response to that is, I'm going to be a comedian, right? Especially a comedian of like, I'm a little bit of an outsider. I'm not part of the group. I'm going to comment on it, and by not caring about the things that they care about, by being separate from that, right? By being the blessed are the big noses, right? By not being on the same wavelength as them, by being outside of it, I get to be funny because I get to, like, by not caring and breaking up their vibe, I get to be funny. And if he's an outsider and was able to make hay out of that comedy, then that's how he chooses to like deal with those things, right? He chooses to deal with them by like just keep them laughing. Just that's it. So like, be charming, keep them laughing. Don't think too much about it, and you'll be all right. You know what I mean? You'll be biased for people in Los Angeles, and people think you're witty, which is fine. And they do. And fair play to old Eric.
Right, but it's difficult to craft a leading character around that.
Yeah, but that's no way to construct as you say, a character that needs even like in a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie of the early 2000s, like his character has an arc. Do you know what I mean? Like They even understand that you have to learn. But what is Idle learn? That killing people to become a Duke is bad? Like, what's the, do you know what I mean? Like, what's the lesson here? He's learned nothing. He doesn't learn to appreciate his roots. Like, that's not way, because he ends up with the big house. It's not like, oh, what I've learned is that being raised by a family that loves you is more important than like the house you grow up in. So he doesn't learn that. He doesn't learn that murder is bad because he sees literally no consequences for trying to bump off Moranis. Moranis just forgives him because he's a bit of a laugh and he just likes hanging around with people. And he doesn't even learn that that like having sex with your best friend's girl is bad because you fancy her and you think, like, he's sort of petty and jealous, and he doesn't even learn that those things are bad. He gets rewarded with the house at the end. And there's that thing with Sadie Frost where he's like, and I sold my story and then I married my secretary so she wouldn't sell her story. You go, well, A, what story is she selling? And B, the ending of your movie is you're going to get married to somebody on the basis of like self-preservation and like of what too? Of like, what do you even care? What name are you protecting here? Why are you like sinking into an apparently loveless marriage on the basis of protecting a name that you don't possess and you don't care about? And what, like, is that an ending anyway? Like,
yeah, no, none of it makes a lick of sense.
But you also get nothing. It's so weird when you think about it.
Yeah, no, when you start to break down Eric Idle's character, he's a real fuck. Like he's a psychotic London trader wanker who has clearly like sexually harassed his secretary, and then who ends up tries to kill his best friend, right? Completely abandons his loving family, and then shacks up with the secretary so she doesn't sell her story of sexual harassment and nightmares. He's a fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's very, very strange.
It's very strange, and I just not
at any point funny.
I think
it's just the only thing I can find to say about it that I did find myself charmed by was I did at least think, unlike Burn Hollywood Burn, it was good natured. It was made to be charming and breezy and don't think too much about it, and people falling over and like having little bon mots is funny, and like the urination gag gets me too, right? Because there's a bit when Hershey and Idle are in the shower, right? And the German bloke comes in and has a piss. And the joke presumably is he's having a piss for a long time. That's the joke. But they totally undercut the joke by cutting away from him having a piss to like Moranis talking about something and then cutting back. And then it doesn't even go on for that long. And then he stops. We're going to get an Austin Powers bit here where he keeps pissing. But they don't even do that. So what's the joke? That a German bloke came in and took a piss and left? That's it? You know what I mean? There's no, that's what I mean. It's an absence of possibilities there. Like, everything on a movie, when the cameras are on and there's people gathered, even if you've only got half a script. Like, that's the thing about Die Hard, right, that I was reading afterwards. So we're talking about it because I watched Die Hard on Christmas Eve. That apparently, like, Die Hard wasn't really finished as a script, and they were kind of winging it as they went on. You go, well, there you go. Like, look at what they came up with. Like, it wasn't even supposed to be. It was supposed to be terrorist. It was supposed to be like a very straight-edged action film, and it became like a classic because they changed it and they sort of made it up on the fly, and they kind of ad-libbed a few things, and it became something. Because, like, you know, there were possibilities there, and there's
I didn't even realize this. Eric Idle is actually 5 years older than Barbara Hershey, who plays his mother, and Idle is 10 years older than Rick Moranis, even though they're meant to be about the same age. Well, they're meant to be exactly the same age.
It doesn't surprise me that it's very odd. The whole film is very odd, and it is. And the thing is. And I mean this in the nicest possible way. I am confident that it is absolute. What's that? Oh no, that's. There's a story in a book I read about a guy. It's a true story. He was like a music journalist, and he was in a band, and they had like their big shot, right? This band, and they were doing okay, and they had the big shot, and they had a gig, and there was like some A&R people in the crowd. And it didn't go very well, right? And it didn't go very well because they weren't really that great. There wasn't like a great spark there. You know, they didn't really get on as a band. There wasn't a lot of a vibe. So the guy goes backstage and he says to the bloke, "Is that as good as it gets?" And in a moment of deep personal clarity, the guy replies, "Yes, that is probably as good as it gets," right? And from that point on, he quits being a musician and just leaves because he suddenly comes to realize that he doesn't have it. And the thing about this movie is, this is the best movie that Eric Idle could possibly have made. You know what I mean? Like, his personality and who he is and what he considers valuable, especially in terms of his time and his effort, it was never going to be any better than Splitting Heirs. He is clearly given pretty much carte blanche. I don't care what he says. No executive was breathing down his neck demanding that he make a funnier movie because that did not happen, right? Like, there's no effort there. So no one was breathing down his neck. Like, whatever magic it is that Python has, let's just let Idle make it, and hopefully it'll make us a fortune. And it's, you know, it's nothing. So that's what I mean about this is as good as it gets for Idle. This is what he thinks is a good movie.
I mean, I guess so. I just think that it's, you know, it shows very clearly that you can't have. You know, you can't have a character in the center of a movie, a comedy or not, that doesn't have some kind of, you know, emotional investment in the story. It just doesn't work.
No.
Even if you think of something completely madcap and ridiculous like Airplane, you know, the two leads in that, you know, want to be together, want to be in love, want to survive the plane. Like, there's still a story. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's
baked. It's very basic because you can't expect people to laugh if they don't think the characters are at least at some point being real, that what is happening is real. Even in Airplane, it's like, yes, it's ridiculous, but he needs to land the plane. You know what I mean? And so it's sort of borderline exciting. When you don't try and come up with a story, you end up it's very difficult for people to care.
So this is a quote from this. I will leave us with this quote from an Eric Idle interview from November.
Okay.
I was told a true story by a friend about him being left in a telephone booth in Sloane Square as a baby. The piquancy and Oscar Wilde quality immediately appealed to me. Also, one of my favourite films is Kind Hearts and Coronets, a man who discovers he is a long way down the bloodline to inherit an English title and starts to bump off all above him to claim the title. The Indian Family is an obvious lift from Steve Martin's The Jerk, which killed me. I wrote the movie in 6 weeks on the island of Mystique in David Bowie's house he kindly lent to me. So that really tells you all you need to know. He went off to Mystique sloughed around David Bowie's house and borrowed a bunch of stuff from other people, which he admits himself.
But what I like, and I think is very, again, revealing about Eric Idle, is that the story of a baby being left in a telephone booth like appeals to him for its like Wildean, whatever, it's Oscar Wilde like charm, right?
Yeah.
So instead of like making the story echo that charm, that in the telling of the story he will get to the Oscar Wilde, he like makes people dress like Oscar Wilde and drink champagne and talk about the baby in the phone booth. It's not because people dress and act like Oscar Wilde and discuss the story in the phone booth. That's not what makes it Oscar Wilde, Eric.
Right?
It's the story, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So all I know is I like it because it sort of reminds me of an Oscar Wilde story. So I'll just get characters to talk about it like they're Oscar Wilde. No, that's not how it goes. It's like that's how you tell stories, but it's so odd that a guy that clearly loves telling stories can't tell a fucking story, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's just there are 3 threads that go through Idle's career that he created. So the stuff that he's written. Okay. They are Rutland. He can't get enough of Rutland. He wants to put Rutland in everything, from Rutland Weekend Television to the Ruttles to the Ruttle Isles, which we heard about on the previous episode. The second one is obviously Python, but predominantly like Holy Grail. But Python in general, obviously, he's like I say, he's kept Python alive way more than the others did. Maybe Terry Jones did a bit, but he certainly kept Python alive and being a Python and talking about Python a lot more than others did. And then the third theme is the British aristocracy and jokes around that, and I'll tell you why. First of all, he did Splitting Heirs, but he has also talked about working on other scripts about this subject. There was a script that he was going to do that was basically a broad parody of Downton Abbey when that started, that no one would give him money for. I wonder why. And then he ended up doing a musical with Billy Connolly and Eddie Izzard and Russell Brand and a bunch of other people called What About Dick, which is sort of, I think, probably based on that script, kind of a witty knockabout, bedroom farce set in the British aristocracy. So he has about 3 things that he's really carried throughout his career. And I can certainly say, having seen it, because it's on Netflix, What About Dick is at least funnier than Splitting Heirs. I'm not going to say how much funnier, but it is funnier than Splitting Heirs. I just think it's Splitting Heirs is a weird one for me. I mean, my quick capsule review is that I watched it a ton growing up, and I probably definitely watched it in the idea of, well, I've seen Python, I've seen A Fish Called Wanda, I've seen the other post-Python films. This is just what post-Python films are, so it's just nice to watch, like Eric Idle.
Yeah, I can see how if you're a kid, it's kind of breeziness would be easy to digest.
Right, because if you it's not till you're an adult. Like if you look at, for example, if you look at this versus something like, I mean, Kind Heart and Coronets is probably the best example, but like something like A Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, right, which is like 2 people trying to play off each other and outdo each other and whatever. If you're a 13-year-old and you watch Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Splitting Heirs, you probably kind of put them on the same kind of level, because you kind of go, well, humor is funny knockabout people, one American and one British, kind of doing stuff to each other. That's kind of funny, right? Not to say that I was an idiot at 13, but you know what I'm saying, right? You watch a movie with certain eyes.
Yeah.
When you get older, you are intrinsically aware of just the layers upon layers upon layers of structure and farce and intelligence that there is in something like A Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And not only that, but you become more abundantly aware of just how amazing both actors are in it. When you watch Splitting Heirs as you get older and with other eyes, you start to see just the absolute lack of substance that there is in it, and that while there is still a nostalgic glow for watching Eric Idle and Rick Moranis knock about screen together for a bit, it certainly does not carry its 1 hour 26 minutes. But anyway, that was just the other point I wanted to make. And let us go, before we wrap this up, to Andy Lund's comments.
All right.
But thank you. I think we've talked longer about splitting hairs than was probably worth it. But I think we got to some real truths, and I think that's important.
I think we did too. I think if Eric Idle is listening, he's probably weeping right now at the truth that we've reflected back.
You cut me to the core, Jim and John.
Yeah.
All right. Andy says, and this is funny too, I often get splitting hairs mixed up with parting shots, although I don't think I've actually had the pleasure of either. If you've seen them both, are they at all similar, or am I just mixing them up because they were both panned? And is one of them so bad that it makes the other look like a masterpiece? Are you aware of parting shots, Jim?
Is that a Winner joint?
Parting Shots is a Michael Winner film that stars Chris Rea, that mountain of charisma.
Oh, I do remember that. That's right. Oh my God, if ever there was a movie that was made up in like a restaurant in Surrey.
This was definitely made up in a restaurant in Surrey. Chris Rea stars as Man, and all of Michael Winner's dinner guests, Joanna Lumley and John Cleese and other people, show up for what I'm sure are hilarious cameos. But as I've never seen it, I can't confirm or deny that.
Chris Rea.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I think also, interestingly, I think Parting Shots, I'm not even kidding, I think Parting Shots represents the line I wouldn't cross in post-Python watching, because Cleese shows up in it as a cameo, and I've seen the trailer. But
That's so rich that on the bottom of the cover of the Parting Shot represents the line I wouldn't cross. That's such a great review.
Meaning, I think that by the time Parting Shots came out, I was old enough to know that I didn't have to watch every single post.
It's a shame because you would have seen it otherwise.
Yeah, I would have seen it otherwise, but I think it was the line I didn't cross.
If he'd only rushed out, if only had that dinner with Chris Rea.
Yeah. Well, I will now go back and watch it. But no, Andy, I have not seen it, but I am now intrigued deeply.
I want to see Parting
to see whether Parting Shots is...
Can we do a Michael Winner season? Can we do a Michael Winner season?
Sure.
We did Parting Shots and Bullseye. I've never seen Bullseye.
No, I've done Bullseye already during my Roger Moore episode.
Oh, okay.
And dude, Bullseye does not warrant... I've watched it recently and it does not warrant rediscovery at all. It's awful. I mean, I would be willing to discuss it. Sure, I'd be willing to discuss it, but not a whole episode. I would be willing to, like...
Yeah, we'd reference it.
Reference it, yeah, sure.
I do. I kind of want to see Parting Shots now. I can't believe somebody made a film with Chris Rea as a hitman. That's presumably the story, right?
I think so.
Remember. Wow.
But I do want to answer Andy Lund's question as to, is one so bad that it makes the other look like a masterpiece? I'm intrigued by answering that question, so I will watch Parting Shots, Andy, and get back to you. The next question, or the next comment he has, is on an entirely separate subject. Do you think that the 1 foot in the grave tortoise was shunned by friends and family for taking the gig of appearing in the title sequence as Eric's god-awful theme tune plays out?
It's possible, I guess. I mean, the tortoise is probably still alive, right? They live a long time, so he's still carrying the shame around now. Wasn't Eric in the pilot episode of that show?
No, I think he's in the final episode of that show.
No, I think he's in the first episode. I seem to remember, and this ages me horribly, that in the promos for no, you want to watch this, it's funny, because Eric Idle's in it. I think he was in the first episode.
I don't think he's in the first episode. I think he's in the last episode, but I'm going to look it up right now and get you the answer.
Maybe you're right. I have been known to be wrong on many, many, many occasions.
Season 2, episode 8, he appears in the episode "The Man in the Long Black Coat." I don't know where season 8 falls. There were 44 episodes, so it's certainly not the last episode, so I was wrong. But he's not in the first episode. He's definitely not in the first episode.
All right, okay.
I don't think.
I can remember that wrong. Not to worry.
Yeah, he's not in the first episode. He is. I will look at season 2. He might be in the last episode of season 2. He is. He's in the last episode of season 2.
Okay, so that's the promo I saw then, I guess.
Yeah. So, also, I did some digging and fell down an Eric Idle rabbit hole, just as Andy Lunn brought up theme tunes. And he was in an American sitcom, like he actually tried to be the lead in his own American sitcom called Nearly Departed, which doesn't make any sense because in it he plays a ghost. So I guess the joke is like he's departed, but not really. But he is actually departed because he is actually dead. So
yeah, but he's not like gone to heaven or whatever. I know. I think that stands. I mean. So now I want to see that.
So you can. There's an episode 10. It only lasted a season. I believe it lasted. What's weird is it says on IMDb that it lasted 6 episodes, but on YouTube it calls it episode 10. But anyway, it is. He sings the theme tune. The theme tune to Nearly Departed is a full, 3-minute Eric Idle song.
Everyone lately is making me crazy. Now that we've joined the deceased, there'll be no resting in peace. Nearly departed, stumbling cockeyed, the moment that rock slide came tumbling down on our head. Maybe we're better off dead, nearly departed. It's hard to ignore when a family of 4 is running amok in our home. They're constantly near us, they can't see or hear us. Nobody can, except the old man, just pushing up daisies. We're halfway to Hades and halfway to heaven above. Nothing like being in love, dear, nearly departed.
But the premise is Grant and Claire Pritchard are a deceased couple who still inhabit their home and make trouble for the Dooleys, the new owners. But Grandpa is the only one who can hear and see the ghosts. Hilarity ensues.
How do they make trouble if no one can hear or see them?
You have to watch it and find out. But look up Nearly Departed on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I can see why you fall down the rabbit hole, to be fair.
Oh, but there's so much rich weirdness to find. because someone on YouTube, someone somewhere, I don't know who, but God bless humanity. And I'm not even religious, but bless humanity. Someone somewhere has the Nearly Departed intro on VHS from 1989. And at some point in the last 10 years was like, well, YouTube's a thing. Someone might want this. And uploaded it to YouTube. I mean, someone somewhere is doing the Lord's work. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. That someone stumbled across it in their VHS collection and instead of, I don't know, setting fire to it or taping over it with tits, decided to put it up on YouTube. And you can't really fault them for that because in the year 2020, at the end of the year, as the 2020 waned, a British middle-aged misanthrope found it online and was like, oh, that's a thing, and then moved on with his life.
Richer. A little bit richer.
Always a little bit richer is how Idle would do. Idle was like, oh, that's a cue for a song. Always a little bit richer.
What's going on with the theme tune as well, splitting hairs? Because he keeps dropping it 3 times. Initially, it was like it's a song they're dancing to in the 60s disco. You're like, all right, I get that. And then it's like a weird, 80s thing about my baby's. Someone's hit my baby, but it's like sort of a joke the way that it's sung because it's kind of like a 50s thing, but also not really. It's so weird. It's not funny.
So what's really weird about it is that he wrote a song, someone came and took my baby away. What can I say? Like a song. He wrote that song, right?
Yeah.
And the director probably went, all right, Eric, we can put it over the title sequence, which would be one thing. All right, put it over the title sequence. But what's weird is right before the title sequence in the prologue, like you said, there's a sequence where they're dancing in the nightclub, and they play the song over that sequence, but not in an attempt to make it sound like it's in the nightclub, but just like over the top of the sequence. Then there's like another brief sequence. Then the song comes in over the theme tune, over the credits. You're like, wait, are we listening to the song that was playing in the nightclub? Oh wait, is that Eric Idle singing? Oh, it is. Okay, so what? So they just didn't have another song for the nightclub and just used the same song. All right. Then you notice that all the orchestral and even the Indian music cues throughout the whole movie, are orchestral or Indian instrument versions of that baby song throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
And then over the credit sequence, I don't know if it's the same song, like the same version, or whether it's a whole other version, but it then plays again as if it hadn't bore itself into your brain and made you want to.
But it's not even as if, like, if you asked Eric Idle right now, would this even break the top 100 songs that you wrote, you know, since you started writing, since 1989, whenever this movie came out? There's no way it would even. You know, it's like not good. It's not funny. It's not catchy. It's not good. And yet,
it's so not good. He said it wasn't good twice.
So, there you go. That's the song. This is it. Yeah, you do that. The disco and the theme tune. And can we get to one for the credits? No, use that again for the credits. What about like an orchestral score? Yeah, just base it off that. Like it is. It's where I begin to suspect laziness, and my insecurity thing slightly comes under attack from the fact that that's clearly laziness, that he couldn't be bothered to write anything else.
So here's my thing, and this again, I mean, no one's listening at this point. It's 2 hours in, but here's my thing. The reason why I feel the need to dig in and dissect Idle is I fear that while one might want to have been John Cleese growing up, I fear that I'm probably Idle, in the sense that when I write stuff, not so much my music, to be fair, because I've definitely put a lot more thought and effort into that of late, but certainly the sketches that I put on occasionally on the front of the diner. Not that I don't like them, and not that I'm not intending them to be funny, but I write them for me. I don't care if anyone else gets them. I don't really care if they're all that good, because I just think to myself, well, you're getting extra content, so like, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely have an approach which is more Idle than it is Cleese. I'm not sitting down and trying to structure, you know, the greatest 3 minutes anyone's ever written, right?
Yeah.
And the few times that I've had ideas about movies, it's very much like, oh, this would be a great idea for a movie, and then I could do this, and then I could do that, and then I could do that, and then a movie ends. And it does. and as much as I understand the concept of what a movie should have in it, I'm not that interested outside of how does it make me feel. So I feel like I'm more Idle. So this whole series, and that's why I'm putting this right at the end of this episode, because no one's listening, but this whole series of me digging deep into Idle's creativity is really looking at the dark, shallow heart of my own emptiness. Creatively.
I almost want to leave that pause there so you could end the episode at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was such a dark way of ending it. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think all of us want to be Cleese, but fear we're Idle, you know, and he stands there as a warning against anyone who would choose to make or do anything, that it is easy to think that charm and past success equate to contentment, because I don't think he is content. I don't think Splitting Heirs, it's like everything about the movie screams, is this enough? Is this enough? I hope this is enough. You know?
And I'm going to end the episode because just like Parting Shots was the film that was the line I would not cross. Splitting Heirs is the film that made Eric Idle leave the United Kingdom. And I'm not even kidding. This is a quote from an actual interview Eric Idle gave very recently. When being asked by a, let's say, overzealous interviewer, as a great comedy film, it seems underappreciated. Do you think people were expecting a Python-esque film and weren't prepared for the clever and black-humoured farce that it was? Eric Idle's response, I think, cuts deep because it shows the wounds that still haven't healed many years later and is laced with delicious desperation and insecurity. The British press behaved like the shits they are. Alexander Walker and Baz Baminggoy attacked me at Cannes because the French had chosen it for the festival. I couldn't believe it and determined to leave the country, which I did. I had raised about 12 million from Hollywood to spend in the UK on the film business. Catherine, like he did. He saved the British film industry with this movie. Catherine Zeta-Jones was so attacked by the press, she cancelled her trip to the Cannes Festival, and I had to walk down the stairs alone. One of the loneliest and saddest experiences of my life. Coming from a guy whose father died on his way home to him. I have never regretted leaving the UK and would never open anything first there. They eat their young. They would have killed Spamalot, for example, so I opened it on Broadway. They also attacked my play, Past the Butler, directed by Jonathan Lynn, which was actually quite funny, if he does say so himself.
Imagine, like, the reviews of the play, right? It's actually quite funny.
Yeah.
The author...
Yeah.
The author thinks it's quite funny. Maybe I'll go and see it.
Talking again about Splitting Heirs, he says, I was amazed years later to discover that people actually like the movie, and it was George Harrison's favourite. No, it wasn't. I'm saying that right now. I'm saying that George Harrison definitely preferred Life of Brian over Splitting Heirs. Definitely. Flat out, definitely. Because I think had George Harrison really liked Splitting Heirs, he may have paid for it instead of getting 12 minutes from home.
He probably said, Eric, it's the best movie in which you were the lead opposite Catherine Zeta-Jones I've ever seen.
Yeah. Either that or he said it after he was quite ill and thought, I'll just say a nice thing to a friend before I die. That's bleak. That's dark.
Could be true.
Yeah.
Could be true.
Anyway, it was George Harrison's favourite. He said, it's like Rutland TV. It went from being what I thought was a flop to a cult and then a classic. Well, okay, let's just say right now, Splitting Heirs is neither a cult, not by anyone's standard, and is most assuredly not a classic. Mr. Barnaby Eaton-Jones, and that's seriously what he calls himself on his website, so I'm going to take it to be his name, on the Dreamcage website. And no offense to Barnaby Eaton-Jones, it's a wonderful Python-esque name. Congratulations on that one. I'm sure Eton and Cambridge were wonderful places to have gone to. He thinks it's a wonderful movie, and that's fine. He's allowed to. That's marvellous. Eric Idle seems to think it's now a cult classic. It's not. It's not in any way at all. He thinks it's a cult classic, but doesn't even know who owns it or how it could be put out on Blu-ray. And apparently, the reason why it failed is that the British press are shits. Actually, what's interesting is because I thought, oh great, let me go read some reviews attacking Idle. I looked up all the reviews I could find, and the most attacking review I could find just simply says, considering it's Idle and Rick Moranis, you would expect it to be funnier. And that's it. I didn't find any reviews attacking it. You know what I mean? Most people just kind of go, with all the pedigree involved in the movie, why is it not funnier? That's really what most people feel about it.
Yeah, and that's actually what I remember of it too. I remember there being like quite a lot of pride about Fish Called Wanda, right? That at the time there hadn't been a big British film in a long time, and the idea that we'd made a film that was funny and popular was like a bit weird. And I think that people were hoping for something similar, and people didn't. I don't remember it being attacked. It was just like, it's not that funny, and then the people ignored it. And I don't think Catherine Zeta-Jones was attacked in the press and so wouldn't appear at Cannes. I think she was offered the chance to launch her career,
and took one look at that movie and went, if I don't run away from this as fast as humanly possible, I will not have a career. So, no, Eric, I will not be appearing next to you on the red carpet, because also we're not the couple in the movie even. That's the other thing. It's like, who's the, like, he doesn't even have a leading lady. Is it Hershey? Is it Zeta-Jones? Is it Sadie Frost? Like, Rick Moranis and Catherine Zeta-Jones are never anything other than happy together. So what the fuck?
So there we go. That's about as deep as I'm going to dig on.
Yeah, fair enough.
Splitting Heirs. But I have to say,
what are we doing next time? I
have to say, congratulations to the Dreamcage.com for getting that interview, because it's a very eye-opening interview, because with the director and the star, years and years later, doing an interview for the Dreamcage website, what have they got to lose? So they are fairly open and frank about it, and that always leads to a more interesting answer and a more interesting delve into Idol's psyche, where it's seemingly either the British press or Hollywood producers. He can't win on either side of the Atlantic. On one side, he's got producers hampering him and telling him that, it can't be funny enough. And on the other side, he's got the press. So, I don't know. Better stay home and count his Spamalot cash, I guess.
Stay in David Bowie's house.
And stay in David Bowie's house. So what are we doing next? Well, we're going chronologically backwards, and we've done Burn Hollywood Burn. We've just done Splitting Heirs. Next week, it's Missing Pieces.
All right. Well, I shall look forward to that, mate.
Here's a question, and I'm going to put. Do you think that in Missing Pieces, Eric Idle somehow sings the theme tune? I'm just going to put it out there.
I think it's entirely possible, mate, yeah.
And the only reason I go back to saying that I am Idle is that if I had been in a bunch of things, I too would want to sing the theme tune.
Yeah, I know you would.
However, you would take a listen and go, don't. Get someone else to sing the theme tune. And I would listen to you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, even though deep down I'd really want to sing the theme tune. So I don't, again.
And deep down, I wouldn't want you to.
I leave this episode with the duality of Idol. I kind of love him. I kind of like him, and I kind of get where he's coming from. But at the same time, put more effort in, Eric.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there, mate.
Like, he wrote the song Fuck Christmas. That was mildly funny. Fuck Christmas, okay, I get it. Fuck Christmas, hardy, hardy, ha. Then the next song he did was Fuck Selfies. At that point, you're like, I don't know how much turning, old man rage and confusion into songs beginning with the word fuck. I don't know what legs that has, Idol. I really don't know. Like, maybe...
Whatever legs it has, you can bet Idol's going to find out. He'll run them until they're stumps.
But I love the idea. He sung it recently at a book signing when he was going around for his autobiography. And that must be lovely to be in the audience thinking, oh, wow, I get to see my hero from Python, Eric Idle. He gets to tell me some stories about his autobiography. And he starts the thing off with, like, don't fucking come near me or ask me for a picture because I fucking hate it and fuck you all. And you must just be like, huh. If I was Eric Idle at this point, I'd want people asking me for a selfie, because who's asking him for a selfie? You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah.
Again, the duality of Idle. I love him. I can't stand him. I love him. I can't stand him. It's a rich, and it's the same with me. I love me. I hate me. It's a rich theme that we dance along. Jim,
we're definitely opening up some.
This has been
into our psyches here, mate.
This has been a pleasure. I've loved every single mad minute of it. Next week we'll talk about Missing Pieces. I can't imagine what we're going to dig up around that.
God knows, mate. God knows. We're going to be weeping by the end of it on the floor, remembering our birth.
See, what's interesting is I remember enjoying Missing Pieces. Like, I remember watching Missing Pieces several times and enjoying it. So I think I'm going to be weirdly embarrassed by that.
Hope springs eternal, mate. You never know.
I was just born lucky. Yes, I guess it's true. But now my luckiness has all turned into blue. Someone came and stole my baby away. Someone came and stole my whole life away. I was so happy all of the time. With my baby, I was oh so fine. But you came right along. took everything that should be mine, 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 mine. Someone came and stole my happiness away. Now somehow that someone's gonna have to pay. I lost my baby when he stepped in. He took my life and everything. He stole my baby, now I'm so blue. Tell me what to do. Someone came and stole my baby away. Someone came and stole my happiness today. He came along, he did me wrong. Now my whole life's gone. Someone came and stole my whole life away. He's gonna have to pay some way. He's gonna have to pay someday. Yes, he's gonna have to pay.